going to be looking at examining safety precautions, proper inspection, use, maintenance, storage at the workplace with regard to lithium ion batteries. And so sit tight, get ready for today's feature, and let me introduce our keynote speaker, Andrew Bisbee, who is a lineman and troubleshooter for Puget Sound Energy. Andrew, we are so thankful to have you on board today, and thank you for taking time. I'm going to go ahead and switch over screen sharing to you, and we look forward to hearing the information you have for us today.
Thank you. First of all, Rhett, fantastic radio voice, man. You're excellent at that. Some people say I have a face for radio. I certainly don't have the voice for it, but you definitely have the voice for it. And everyone, don't adjust your computers. I really do look this bad. I've been working all night long. The weather has been dreadful in Olympia here, and it has been a very, very long night. So a little bit of background on me. I was born and raised in North Pole, Alaska. Interesting enough, I was born on Christmas Day in North Pole, Alaska. My family has lived up there before it was a state, and I've traveled around doing line work in 9 different states, been all over the country. It kind of sounds bad, like I can't keep a job, but actually it's kind of the life of a lineman. You kind of go where the work's at. But I've most recently been with Puget Sound Energy for the last 14 years as a troubleman. If you don't know what a troubleman is, troubleman is when your power's out and you call into the power company and say, I have a problem. I'm the guy to come find out what the problem is, and I'm the guy to come and fix it if I can. And but most importantly, I'm the guy to come and make it safe for you or for the public or for myself even. I've been all over with PSE and all over our service territory. We have over 1 million customers. I've been safety chairman for Olympia. I've been safety chairman for Bellevue. All over PSC, and safety secretary as well. I most recently did the Governor's Council on Safety and did this same presentation at the Governor's Council on Safety. It's better in person just because it's a little easier to answer questions, but I will do my absolute best on Zoom. But getting started, the first thing I'm going to show you and see if you can see this. This battery right here is a lithium ion battery. That is the exact same battery that is in my hard hat lamp right there. That battery, I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Let's see.
We can see it, Andrew.
You can see that?
Yep. Just start the slideshow.
Okay. Let me see here. Oops.
There you go.
Okay. Here we go. That battery right there is the exact same battery that is in a long-range Tesla. The difference is that that battery is hang on a second. That battery is being used in everything. I mean, it's being used in a lot. There's different types. There's a cylindrical shape like this. There's also flat packs that are used like in your cell phone. Some auto manufacturers use the flat packs as well. But these days, everything is lithium ion, just about everything. And it's completely impossible to avoid these batteries. The reason I'm talking about it is I just want you to be aware so that even though you're exposed to them, you know how to take precautions if you do come into a situation where one of these gets penetrated or starts to off gas. They've completely made our world better. All our tools are smaller. All of our, obviously electric cars, hybrid cars, they've just transformed the world. And I can only imagine what the batteries in 10 years are going to be like. It's going to be really crazy. The issue that I have with the lithium ion batteries right now is that while the technology is soaring through the sky and going crazy, I don't see the safety following the same projection. And that's a real issue, because all of a sudden, if you don't take it seriously, at a certain point, that safety is going to drop off, and it's only going to be focused on the, how can we make these batteries better and more useful. This same exact battery that I was showing right here, this battery, Tesla EV, long range Tesla EV, has 8,256 of these inside of it. That battery weighs 1,700 pounds, just the battery on that car. To put it in perspective, 1,700 pounds is roughly what Subaru Impreza weighs. The GM Hummer, which is a gigantic battery, that uses pouch cells. That battery weighs in at 2,800 pounds, just the battery alone. Those are very heavy vehicles. And when you have an issue, like in my trade, we have a lot of car hit poles. And when you hit a car hit pole with a lithium battery car, you've damaged those. If you damage those batteries, that car could burst into flames at any moment. And you have no idea of when. It happens very, very quickly. With these cells, these individual cells, if you puncture just one of these cells, you have 8,256 of these that are going to fail, because they're going to fail in series. This one fails, the next one fails, the next one fails, and it's going to continue until all the material is gone. Now, when these burn, they release some very toxic gases. One of the gases that is released is manganese. When you breathe manganese goes straight to your brain and you die. Your liver will not filter it, where a lot of gases that you breathe, your liver will filter it. It will not filter this battery, the manganese that comes out of this battery. It's the white gray smoke that comes out off of the off-gassing from this. It is very toxic. You do not want to be around it. So if you see any of these batteries that start to smoke, you need to get away from that battery as soon as you possibly can. You do not want to be exposed to it. You don't want to breathe it. You don't want it in your clothing. You don't want it in your home. If I was to puncture this battery in an office building, it would completely empty that building immediately. Everyone in that building would leave, because it will produce some of the most incredible off gas you could imagine, and just this one battery could burn up to 1,800 degrees if you put a nail through it. Once you short circuit this, that's really what's happening. It's short circuiting, and it causes that short circuit to start on fire. Some of these vehicles that we're talking about, like obviously car fires are an issue, but there's more car fires with gas-powered vehicles than there are EVs or hybrids. The reason for that is there's a lot more of them. So you're going to have a lot more car fires. But when you're talking about an EV fire versus a hybrid fire, the hybrid's kind of the worst of both, right? You have a fuel tank, which has an accelerant in it, and you have the batteries that can be punctured or damaged in some way. And all of a sudden, then you have, the worst of both. You have the opportunity for not only an explosion, but a very intense fire. One of the issues with my job is when I go to a car hit pole or a car hit transformer or a car hit switch, identifying those hybrid vehicles is extremely difficult, because at this point, most of the hybrids look identical to a gas-powered vehicle. The only way to tell is the badge a lot of times, or like in the Jeep Wranglers, you can only tell by a hook. They have a blue hook on them versus a black or a red or anything like that. They're very, very difficult to identify. And that's number one. If I go to a car hit pole, I need to identify that vehicle, because I need to know what I'm getting into, because at any point it could start to off gas and could burst into flames. And so with that being said, if it bursts into flames and it's parked underneath a 12,470 volt line, and that or not parked, I guess, crashed into a pole that has a 12,000 volt line above it, that fire is going to reach that line, and now all of a sudden we have an even bigger problem. We have energized lines that are going to come down. So there's it can be a very, very difficult situation for me. I heard the gentleman mentioned earlier about installing the battery energy storage systems. In my trade, it's called a BESS system. They're being installed in homes, basements, garages, and large-scale utilities are also using them, PSC being one of them. The one good thing about them is the damage to the cells is much less likely because it's not driving down the road. It's not bouncing down the street or hitting poles. If it is, you got bigger issues. But the areas that they are installed can be affected by fire. Most structure fires start in a garage. If you have a large-scale battery system sitting inside your garage and a bunch of dirty rags catch fire, it can transfer to that BESS system and catch that on fire, and all of a sudden now you have even bigger issue. Part of the issue with the BESS systems is there's no way to get rid of the energy. The only way to get rid of that energy is for it to burn. And that's the same with the cars. That's the same with the hybrids, the EVs and the hybrids. It's the same thing. You cannot get rid of that energy. In my world, with the power lines, I can de-energize the power lines. I can test them. I can ground them. I can make them safe. You cannot get rid of any of that energy until it is completely dissipated by being used. And at that point, it actually doesn't dissipate all of the energy, but it does dissipate a lot of it. Unfortunately, nobody has come up with a process of how to get rid of all that energy in case of a fire. That's an issue. Again, that's the safety that I'm talking about, that there's no way to stop that energy and there's no way to contain it. And you're certainly not going to be moving these batteries out. Like in a large scale BESS system that power companies are using, some of these batteries can weigh up to 800 pounds. So you're not just going to be able to pick them up and move them and get them out. One of the presenters at the I went to a lithium battery expo here in Lacey, Washington. One of the presenters was a gentleman from Peoria Fire Department in Phoenix, Arizona. He was a captain on a truck, and they went to a BESS system that was smoking, off-gassing, out in the middle of a field with a big chain link fence and concrete wall around it. Lady walking her dog saw the off-gassing and called 911. They showed up. They looked at it. They didn't know what it was. They had no idea. They asked for the power company to show up. Power company showed up, and they wanted to go inside. Luckily for them, the fire department said, no, we need to wait till this stops off-gassing. They waited for about 3 hours for this to off-gas, and finally the gas had slowed down. Once the gas slowed down, they went over and opened the front door. When they opened the front door, 3 minutes later, that the gases inside that garage, inside that BESS system, ignited. Those gases being hydrogen and carbon monoxide, both very flammable gases, ignited and sent all 5 firefighters to the hospital. That captain and his lieutenant were blasted through a chain link fence. One guy landed 30 feet away. One guy landed 70 feet away. The thing that saved his life is his hose man has been trained that if you see fire, you put it out. He turned around thinking the bushes were on fire. He put the bushes out. Turns out it was not the bushes. It was his captain. They had some very serious injuries. They all received had head injuries. The captain lost all of his toes. They had some extremely serious injuries, and they were in the hospital for a very, very long time. 3 years to the day in downtown Phoenix, another utility had a BESS system that started to off gas. This is a very large facility. The one that off gas, the first one was, I believe it was it wasn't enormous. It was about a 50-foot Connex trailer that was completely filled with batteries. This one was a gigantic gigantic building. The good thing about that one is it did have a fire suppression system inside. It did have venting inside. One of the issues was once the fire suppression system took off, it shut down all of the monitoring and the venting system. Luckily, the venting had opened all the vents and allowed the gases to escape. They sat on that. The interesting part was that captain that was in that fire was the first one to be called for on-site expert. He showed up and took control and said, "We are not going in this building." They ended up using a robot to open the door and a drone to go inside and see what was off-gassing. The fire department sat on that facility for 30 days. After the 30 days, they handed it back to the power company and said, "It is yours now." The power company had to have a contractor sit on that for another 60 days before they could go inside and remove those batteries that had failed. That's a tremendous expense. Luckily, nobody was injured in that. That was I believe that was a 100 megawatt facility versus the first facility was a 10 megawatt facility. That's a very large scale BESS system. And it is a tremendous amount of energy sitting there stored that you can't get rid of until you go in and physically remove it.
Hey, Andrew,
yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about portable power tools?
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
Okay. All right.
Some of these, I'll go into it right now. Some of these, so that small battery that I was talking about, this battery, the portable power packs that are on those tools, they have the exact same battery in them. These might have a lot of those batteries might have 5, depending on the size of the battery. It may have 10 of them in there. I beg you, do not use your portable power tool as a hammer. We've all done it where you just need to move something and you bang your drill against it. That is a surefire way to end up with a ball of fire in your hands by banging that battery against something. They're not designed to be banged on. They're not designed to be dropped. I'm the tool guy for PSC in our southern region as well. I've had a number of these batteries fail. Don't believe the internet when they tell you you could jump start them and re-energize these batteries from another battery. Please don't do that. That is a bad idea. The reason it's failed, there's a reason it failed, and you do not need to be listening to the internet when they tell you to go ahead and jump start it. It's going to be fine. There's a reason it's not working. And if it's not working, you need to take that out of your life and you need to dispose of it properly. That brings up a good point about that. 95% of the material in this battery is recyclable. Now, that's not the same case for a lead acid battery. That's a good thing. The issue is we don't have a lot of recyclers in the United States. They have, and part of the issue that they're having in the recycler facilities is that they're having some large scale fires too, because they have piles and piles of these batteries. Again, that energy is not dissipated, and all it takes, if you have 25,000 of these batteries stacked up in a pile, all it takes is for one of them to fail, and now you have a fire that is insurmountable. So I beg you to recycle them. The people that work in our waste management do not need to be dealing with this. This is not okay to throw these in the garbage. They have fires every single day at Waste Management because people dispose of them. They throw them right in the garbage and send them on their way. Well, then they get damaged when they're being processed, or they're already damaged. That's why they're being thrown away. Please recycle them properly. I do hope that at this point we start to get more recyclers that come online, because it's big business. I mean, that material is hard to come by. It has to be mined. It has to be. There's tremendous amount of work that goes into getting the material that goes into these batteries. When you have 95% that you can recycle, that just takes out that much more that you don't have to dig up and do that. So I really hope that at a certain point we streamline the recyclable situation in our country. But again, with a house fire, those batteries in your garage on a charger, I beg people, if you have an old 20-volt charger and you're charging your new lithium battery on an old charger, they're not designed for that battery. You should only charge them with the ones that they come with from the manufacturer. Make sure you're using the right one. Don't buy the adapters from Amazon and charge it on a don't charge a DeWalt battery on a Milwaukee charger. I beg you not to do that. They're not designed to do that. They are designed by the manufacturer to charge safely and to shut down once they're charged, or if that battery, if it recognizes that there's a problem with that battery, those smart chargers shut off and they stop charging. So if that fire starts in the garage and you happen to have a BESS system in your garage, or you have another EV in your garage, you have a tremendous amount of energy that could be lit on fire, and you're going to burn your house down, your neighbor's house down, and your neighbors are going to be upset with you. This first video I'm going to show you is it happens very, very quickly, and if I can, I'll show it to you more than once. But the garage on the right-hand side had a Jeep Wrangler hybrid inside of it. Since this, those Jeeps have been recalled, and they were having an issue with the pouch cells underneath the back seat off-gassing. This call was for an electrical odor smell. Fire department had been there. You can see the other garage door is open. They had already scoured the house, could not find any electrical odor smell. I go on electrical odor smells at least 4 times a week. People call in, say they have an electrical odor smell. Turns out they have a bad breaker. You can smell it, or they have a bad light switch or something. The fire department goes on them more than that. A lot of times the fire department goes on it and then immediately calls us. I come there and give them my expert opinion on what the situation could be. This was in Utah. You watch very closely to that garage door and watch and see what happens. So that garage had filled completely with hydrogen and carbon monoxide from that off gas. In my world, if the meter was on this side of the house and I went over there and I pulled the meter for that electrical odor smell, there would be a 2-inch pipe going from that meter into the panel inside that garage. If I pulled that meter, the spark that I would create pulling the meter from turning off their power, that spark would have blown my face completely off, because all of that gas would have ignited and shot fire completely out that 2-inch hole. It so happens that the meter is on this side of the house, but on this one. But these are concerns for me. I've told my people that from this point forward, the first question I need to know, is there a hybrid or an EV in the garage, or is there a BESS system in the garage? If there is, I'm going down the street. I'm going to kill the power to the entire neighborhood and shut power off at a safe distance. And then we will figure out what the best proper way to getting that garage vented and find out what the problem is. Some of these vehicles, they had tow truck operator at the Lithium Battery Expo, that they had towed a vehicle, and at this point, Washington's recommendation, state of Washington, is for the fire department to follow an EV or a hybrid when they put it on a tow truck and take it away, because they've had these vehicles light on fire once they drive away. So they've asked them to follow them from this point forward. They had a hybrid vehicle that was in a fender bender. It didn't look that bad. They had towed it to the yard. Now Washington has required tow yards. If you have an EV or a hybrid in your tow yard, they have mandated that they put concrete barriers around 3 sides of that vehicle just in case there is a fire. This car sat there for 68 days. The insurance company didn't want to pick it up. The repair place didn't want to pick it up. The owner certainly didn't want it because it's a smashed up car. 68 days later, it burst into flames in their yard and burned to the ground. When I say it can happen at any moment, it can happen in 10 seconds. It can happen in 68 days. This will show you how quickly that fire, once the off gas starts, how quickly it will ignite and burst into flames. These are commuter buses for a school in China, but it's still pretty intense. So the only bus that had a problem is this first bus on the right-hand side. That fire spreads to every single one of those buses and the dumpster right next door. It'll restart and you'll see the off gas happen. The off gas will immediately start to off gas and then burst into flames, and you'll see how quickly it here comes off gas. Boom, there's a short circuit. And burst into flames. That is a very intense fire. And as it spreads from bus to bus to bus, it just gets more intense and more intense. And evidently they put out fires with garden hoses in China. Doesn't seem like a lot of water to me. But it doesn't leave much left after it burns all that energy off. This bus, I was hoping to have the audio shared, but let me see. I can't seem to share the audio. But this bus right here, this was in London. You're going to see this bus has the batteries in the roof of the bus. The city of Lacey owns some of these buses, almost identical. The difference is the city of Lacey ordered them with the batteries in the floor and on the roof, which once you watch this video, I'm not exactly certain you're going to want to ride that bus that often. You'll see the off gas happen. You'll see the short circuit happen. And then you literally have, excuse me, you have an intense fire. You'll see the little poof of smoke. Boom, there's the off gas. And then immediately it bursts into flames. In all the stuff falling out of that is those individual cells blowing out of that battery. So it's shooting batteries in that are on fire and short circuiting everywhere. Evidently, that bus driver smarter than the other bus driver. Luckily, they got everybody off the bus because the bus was having issues prior to this, so they are able to get everybody off the bus and clear all the passengers. But that's a pretty intense fire. I could only imagine if there was a battery in the floor and a battery on the roof, how intense that fire would be.
Andrew, I have a question. This is Rhett.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at these larger scale vehicles that are having these explosions and massive fires, let's just say, for example, that we have on site on some of our construction projects multiple trade partners, and we have gang boxes that are, generally scattered on the bottom of the gang box. Not in every situation, but with handheld power tools, and that ranges from drills, saws, grinders, sanders, wrenches, you name it. And we might have anywhere from 3 to a dozen lithium ion batteries in that particular gang box, or in a location of where they're being charged, say at a charging station. Is there what type of recommendations do you have with regard to these smaller batteries, but still carry a massive punch if they were to ignite or be damaged in some capacity, for storage and making sure that that doesn't ignite, say, a large 50-story building in downtown Seattle or Bellevue per se?
One recommendation I would have is those batteries should be stored separately from all the other flammable material. You wouldn't want a whole gang box filled with tools and gear, things that can catch fire, and you just leave them all in one box, because that's just more material to burn. On top of that, when you're charging them, you want to make sure you're charging them at a safe distance, and there's not too many things plugged into one outlet or one gang box. When I've seen on job sites where they run an extension cord, then put a pigtail on it and run 6 chargers off of it. If one of those pigtails goes bad, all of a sudden you've got a fire from the pigtail that's right next to the batteries. It was not the battery's fault, but all of a sudden there's a fire, and now you have all this stored energy. So using safe practice, and understanding that, well, what do I need to do to keep from causing a fire, so that these batteries don't catch on fire? One of the things I've seen on some of these large scale job sites now too is they're using a large battery bank to run lighting. Need to understand that battery it's a massive, massive battery. It needs to be stored in a safe spot so it doesn't get hit with a forklift. It doesn't get hit with, any of these lift vehicles or anything like that. Even though you want the lighting in the area, it may be better suited to be in a different spot. So that's a massive battery that's in some of these. Milwaukee makes one that's 5 kW. It's pretty big. I mean, that's the size of a generator. They've got one that I think they have a 7 kW as well, which is, it's big. It's a lot of energy. So making sure that it doesn't get damaged, it doesn't get knocked over, it doesn't get crushed by a vehicle or anything like that. And those batteries on the hand tools, if that battery is not acting right, or if it's creating heat, that battery needs to leave the job site immediately. It needs to be treated as such. It is ready to catch fire. So if that battery is not charging, or if it's not charging fully, or if it's getting hot when you're using it, or when you're charging it, that's an issue. So that battery needs to be taken out of service, because heat is the enemy of all electrical equipment, every bit of it. And if you have some heat, it doesn't take long for that thing to catch fire. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Yep, no problem. Okay, I ask everyone out there, do your kids own a scooter? These scooters are made with some of the worst material on the planet. They are not a Tesla. They are kind of made with bubble gum and rubber bands, and if your kids are anything like my kids, my kid treats everything like he hates it. So and tries to destroy everything he owns. So these things take a beating, riding up and down sidewalks, down in the road, and they're banging into stuff. And once you bring it inside and plug it into charge, this can happen. You'll see how quickly the off gas starts to happen, and the short circuit happens, and then you immediately have a fire that completely engulfs the apartment. You'll see the off gas. That's the carbon monoxide and hydrogen that's being created right there. And then you have an intense fire that will not go out until all of the energy is gone. Now, if you're in that apartment and that catches fire, I ask you, how are you getting out of that apartment? If you're on the 4th story, I hope you can grow wings and fly, because there's no other way out of that apartment, because it's blocking your exit. So my son did have one of these scooters. My son no longer has one of these scooters. It left our property some time ago. And then this I found on Amazon. So this is what you can take and plug into your dryer outlet, and then plug your hybrid or EV into to charge. This is a terrible idea. This is $186 on Amazon. You just bought an $80,000 Tesla, and then you're going to plug your Tesla into a $186 charging piece of equipment. It's made out of the cheapest plastic you've ever seen in your life. Luckily, they did name it correctly. It's called the End Man Energy Solution. So it most likely will end whoever owns it. This is not an option. This is a terrible idea. And that concerns me as a lineman, because I don't know that people have this in their house. I'm sure it concerns the electrician that's in the chat as well. You don't know that these people have this in their house, charging their EV. And yeah, the EV didn't cause the fire, but this thing did. Well, that fire is going to spread to that EV, and it's going to catch that house on fire and burn the house down. So from what I understand, they have taken these off of Amazon. You can no longer purchase them, which is a really good thing. But I'll go ahead and take any questions you guys might have.
Yes, questions for Andrew. This is all really good information, Andrew, and it really paints a picture with a many construction folks that are involved, and also some various different utilities. This is a changing world that we live in, and I'm sure not only at the workplace but also at home. There is lots of lithium-ion batteries that are there, and that providing awareness training to our crews and organizations, and making sure this is in the forefront of their mind. So not only are we safe at the workplace, but we're also taking this safety home, as we see more more product out there with lithium ion. And this is definitely an eye opener for me. And while I understand the safety hazards associated with lithium ion, it's really brought to the forefront of my mind some different things that I need to do around my own property, but also informing clients of best management practices with regard to inspection, use, maintenance, and storage of lithium ion batteries. Any questions for Andrew?
Not really a question, but a statement. This is Randall from the AGC. But I do know one thing that some of the people here need to be aware of as well, is the fact that these batteries are now huge banks inside of boom lifts and scissor lifts. Now with the all electric versions, you're going to have the same problems with these lifts potentially that he was demonstrating with the electric vehicles. They have the same systems. My former employer, we had to rewrite company policies because some of our technicians were trying to do field repairs on these machines, and that whole battery system is high voltage. And so we were like, nope, our techs are not qualified. So we actually had to generate policy to say, you don't tinker with anything with the high electricity, because that was the reason. We didn't want them playing around with these things and accidentally making them short, start to off gas, and then make that potential explosion hazard. So this is not just electric vehicles, but this is, you will see these on construction sites. You will see the hybrids as well, where it's usually the electric with usually, I think most of them now are like electric and propane, but you will see even hybrids, especially on the boom list, but you'll also see those all electrics. So definitely be aware that they are on construction sites.
That's a great point. And a lot of these batteries, the terminals are literally 6 inches apart, the positive and negative terminals. And it's like, you couldn't ask for a more dangerous situation as far as a short circuit. And, it amazed me, that they put them 6 inches apart and then they give them an 8-inch wrench to work with. And it's like, okay, well, you understand what's about to happen here, right? It's, you just caused a short circuit, even though the battery wasn't damaged. It is damaged now because you just damaged it with the short circuit that you created. And that's a great point. I've seen those lifts that are all electric. Again, who's monitoring those at night while they're on charging? I mean, if they're on a job site, parked on the job site at night, and nobody's monitoring them, and then all of a sudden one of them catches fire, now your job site's on fire.
Hey, Andrew, I have a question for you.
Certainly.
This is all great information. I really appreciate it. But do you have any recommendations? I mean, what are some indicators before these things happen that people in the field can be looking for when they do inspections or anything like that? And is there anything that's glaringly obvious out there that it's time to replace or call an expert to get their eyes on it?
Yeah, number one, heat. If it's getting hot, there's a problem. There's an issue with one of the cells or multiple cells that are causing heat. Like I said before, heat is the enemy. If it's the same in my trade. If something's getting hot, there's a problem, and it's going to make it worse. It's not going to get better. It's not going to start to cool down. Only going to get worse. And heat is the key to all of it. If you recognize and say you have one of those lifts we were just talking about, and you take a laser gun to the batteries and you go through and test the temperature of them while they're being used, and all of a sudden you come to one of the part of the bank that shows an increased level of heat, right there is a red flag. That machine needs to be shut down, and that needs to be dealt with immediately. Because if that one cell fails, it's going to fail the rest of them. And all the rest of the cells could be completely fine, but one cell is causing heat, and all of a sudden that one cell fails. Now they're all failing. The other thing that can be safe charging is a big deal. I mean, like I said before, don't use old chargers on new batteries. It's the new chargers are smart chargers. They can recognize if that battery is having some sort of an issue, and it can shut off. It'll turn off, and it'll literally stop all charging, and it's no longer going to cause a problem. So that right there. But heat is the number one. But like I said before, if you see that white gray smoke, it normally hangs very low. If you see any of that white gray smoke, you need to understand you're about to have a fire, and that you need to get out of the way. You don't want to breathe that smoke. You don't want to contain it. It's like I said, there's hydrogen and carbon monoxide mixed. There's about 30 different elements that can be mixed into that or more into those gases. But those two gases, the hydrogen and carbon monoxide, are the most dangerous. They're the most highly flammable gases. And that's when you have an explosion like that garage.
Thank you. The other thing is we actually bought two electric scooters for our kids for Christmas last year. So if anybody wants two scooters, there's two for sale.
Yeah. I'll sell them to you cheap, right? Yeah. I can make you a heck of a deal. It is scary because the everything we're buying our kids now has lithium batteries. The issue is you need to make sure that they're not getting hot. If they're damaged, they need to be gone. But please do recycle them, because that material is valuable material. So if we could recycle them and not get them into the waste management system, I think we'd be doing ourselves a justice. And I mean, if you don't mind charging at your neighbor you don't like, that's a good idea too. You could take it over to your neighbors and charge it there, and probably be just fine. Or storing it at the neighbor you don't like, but chances are they're not going to like you very much if you burn their house down.
Other questions for Andrew? This has been a great presentation and very informative. Any questions?
Got a quick one. Like on the batteries themselves, I'm hearing like lithium phosphate is a better battery than a lithium ion one. Is that type of technology going down into the smaller hand tools and stuff like that? Are those, is hopefully some of these thermal runaways and stuff like that, is that going to be a thing of the past as technology continues?
Well, the issue with lithium phosphate is it's not as small as the lithium ion. Lithium ion is going to be with us for quite some time. The best battery out there that they have come up with now is a lithium sodium battery. Now that battery is amazing. It dissipates energy faster than lithium ion, faster than the phosphate. It charges faster. It's an amazing battery. The issue is right now they're very expensive and they're not cost efficient. A lot of the large scale BESS systems are switching to a lithium iron battery. They charge very slowly. They don't dissipate energy as quickly like an EV would need, and they're extremely large and very heavy. The good thing with them is there's a lot less chance of off gassing and thermal runaway. And they're kind of designed for a BESS system, large scale BESS system that's being charged slowly throughout the day for a power company, and then releasing energy during the evening or on peak time. Right now, a lot of power companies are moving towards lithium iron. The lithium phosphate is also relatively more expensive than lithium ion as well. That's an issue right now. If it does, prices come down, it could be the change that we're looking for. But again, dollars make the wheel go round, right? And so until that happens, I think we're going to be in a lithium ion world for quite some time. The one battery that I found out about was
We lost you, Andrew.
We lost your sound for a second, buddy.